Welcome to the first Insights interview of 2022 from the Payments Association. This month's VIP guest has a remarkable track record in risk management, regulation, and delivering change. She's lived and worked in Europe and Australia, and we first got to know her when she set up the first ever payments supervision department at the Financial Conduct Authority, delivering the supervision strategy for payments, as well as being appointed as the accountable executive for the delivery of PSD2. Phew. Now, I knew she was a bit different when I invited her to join me for one of our CEO roundtable dinners, and she responded as no other regulator has ever before by saying, "Yes, I'll be there." Outside her corporate roles, she supported not-for-profit organizations, including charity, and had school governor roles as well. So please welcome the head of department of the FCA, Maha El Dimachki. Hi, Maha.
Hi, Tony. Nice to be here.
Look, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with the community. I know they're looking forward to hearing them. At the start of every Insights interview, I ask my guest how they stay motivated, what makes them go the extra mile when faced with balancing challenging jobs and home lives that often involve considerable stress, especially in this COVID-enhanced or enriched world. So what is it that continues to motivate you, day in and day out?
Well, I mean, Tony, that's a big question, isn't it? I'll start by saying you have to love what you do. That tends to be 3/4 of the answer, doesn't it? But defining what that is, what is it that makes you love what you do, and breaking that down is really important, because it's never one thing. I grew up, for example, in payments, so to speak. I didn't necessarily choose this path. I didn't say one day I woke up and I said, when I grow up, I want to be in payments. It actually chose me. I needed a job to support myself while studying. So I started working for a retail bank, and then things simply developed from there. But I always wanted something that, stimulated my brain, that challenged me. I needed dynamism. I thrived on change. And obviously with change always comes opportunity, and that's motivating as well. And payments was never short of any of those. I mean, now more than ever. So I was always moving forward, and that motivated me to continue kind of all of the work that I did in payments across different types of disciplines. But also people motivate me, stories of strength and survival, But if we think about it, the things that actually are letting us down can be a motivation as well. And they motivate me to contribute to fixing them. So, my role at the regulator, raising standards in financial services, working on consumer protection, market integrity, competition in the markets for, really kind of having a thriving sector. I mean, that also motivates me. But then, if you look outside of just our kind of working lives, things that are fundamental to all of us, and things like diversity and inclusion, equity, treating people fairly, looking after our beautiful planet. I mean, this is going to sound cheesy, right? And I'm going to take the risk, so hopefully your audience will forgive me. But our world has so much beauty, and I want it to stay that way. I want it to stay that way for generations to come. So I want to play my part in that. And finally, I would say my son. I mean, he's autistic. He was diagnosed at 3.5. We were told that there were so many things he won't be able to do in life. And yet here he is, independent, in college. He makes me proud every day, and frankly motivates me to overcome my challenges, and to just try and be better every day, because that's what he tries to do every day. And so that's a big motivation in my life.
Yeah, that's brilliant, isn't it? And I do completely relate to your point about this industry being one in which change is endemic. It's like so much a part of it, and it makes it exciting. That's why so many people are passionate payments people. I call our members often, because they're out embracing change and all the things that have been thrown at us in the last little while. So also you set up. So when I first met you, you were just setting up the first ever payment supervision department. What was the thinking, first of all, behind why that was needed, but also why you wanted to do that?
Well, I mean, it was so great to get that opportunity to do this. Certainly for me, it exposed me to regulation, and I'm fascinated by bringing together industry, which I was, I worked in industry for a long time, and regulation for kind of, for better outcomes. So for me, it was just a great opportunity to be asked to do this. But at the time, it was also necessary given PSD2 and open banking, and payments became more and more, seen as a key sector that contributes to the growth, to innovation, and to a well-functioning economy. So it was important to really recognise that, and ensuring a strong and resilient payments sector that really holds high standards. It goes a long way in ensuring, the stability and the robustness of the financial sector, but also the normal functioning of people's lives. Stability and a resilient sector that is innovating means that people can go about their daily lives as they want to. And I always say this, payments is like the blood supply of the economy. It's like the circulatory system and taking oxygen to all parts of the body. And that's what payments does. It really fuels how the economy works. And so it's really important. And that's why I'm passionate about it. And that's why I think it was great to, for the FCA to consider doing this.
So payment supervision was done. I mean, this is for EMIs and PIs. Is that right? Only those two. So what happened before the supervision department existed? Were they not supervised?
Well, not to the level that they are today. I think certainly banks have always been supervised, retail banks and wholesale banks. But when it came to the non-bank payment institutions and e-money institutions, there wasn't the same amount of focus. And PSD2 and open banking brought all of that to light. And so it was then necessary. Whilst there was some form of oversight or supervision of those sectors. Before the payments department, it wasn't a specific priority for the FCA, and now it is. And that's fantastic.
So did it work? Has it been successful?
Well, I think it's going from strength to strength. I think we needed at the time to identify the key areas of risk. We needed to, you and I, Tony, spoke about raising the standards in the sector. And we've come a long way in the engagement with firms and the industry. Obviously, it's a journey. More needs to be done, no doubt, and we can never sit on our laurels. But we started to talk about safeguarding of customer funds, about the importance of financial and operational resilience of non-bank payment institutions, fighting financial crime, really important topic, treating customers fairly. So these are now discussed and debated openly more and more, and I really like seeing that.
It's good, isn't it? I do sometimes wonder. I hear of some organisations. One report published fairly recently that picked out one or two bits of evidence from which they concluded, it's as if you feel a drop of rain and you think there's a storm coming. But it was essentially alluding to their concerns about the security of the e-money sector. Do you have any concerns about that? I mean, thinking about what's changed in the time since you set the payment supervision department up, do you feel that there's sort of increased levels of concern, or do you feel as if that's not the case, and that actually that things are going well?
Yeah, I think I know the report you're referring to. It's one of those things where we constantly need to ensure that we are raising the standards and we're having the dialogue, and the strong engagement and the continued dialogue is really important. But when we talk about, and I believe, I don't know if it's the same report that you're referring to, but it spoke about money laundering, financial crime, and so on. I mean, that's a never-ending topic that we absolutely need to continue to focus on. I think there's a huge dialogue going on around these. I think that they need to continue, and there's a recognition from the industry on some of these areas that actually we're seeing a lot of collaboration on non-competitive matters in the industry, like financial crime and fighting financial crime. And so coming together as an industry, being forward-thinking, being ambitious for how we take UK payment sector forward, whether it's to be innovative or to ensure the strength and resilience of the sector, it's important that we continue to do that. But that, Tony, because I mean, you're either in the conversation or you're driving the conversation and leading it. So I'm not telling you something.
Well, thank you. No, I think you're very flattering. But the point is that financial crime is one of those things I just think we haven't sorted yet, and it's almost embarrassing when you look at the numbers. And our industry absolutely has to collaborate to make that better. And I'm very confident that the work we've got planned for the next year will do that. So look, you've seen a lot of changes since you joined, but you also chose to take a year out at Pay.UK. What was the thinking behind that? And how did Pay.UK compare to the FCA, for example?
So yes, I did a secondment, and I was running the payments infrastructure, the payments operations, faster payments, backs, and check and credit clearing, and of course all of its related services, 9 or so related services. I mean, it was a different focus to the FCA, but it's the same principles, and I really enjoyed my time there, actually. But again, being passionate about payments, I think experiencing running the payments operations for the UK's PSO, the UK's payment system operator, was a great opportunity. Because again, if we don't have a robust and resilient infrastructure, then we can't have innovation from which to bounce from and thrive in a safe way. So part of having strong infrastructure is to make space for innovation, I think, and being able to contribute to running the operations, thinking of how we can, make them work for participants and therefore for the end consumers, contributing to all of that. And obviously, the at Pay.UK are on their journey for delivering the NPA. I mean, it was great to be part of that, and I really enjoyed it.
I think it is a brilliant work, but I think the stuff you're doing now is even more brilliant. Because then I heard that there was an announcement, wasn't it, by the Chancellor announced something in the budget last year, was it? And then up you pop, and you're then in charge of these 2 initiatives. Can you share a little bit about what you're up to and why we both think it's exciting?
Yes, well, and I do think this is exciting as well. So the role at the FCA, I was asked to go back to set up the Regulatory Nursery, as it was called then, and to lead the response to the Kalifa review. Now, the Kalifa review obviously is well known. I think many have seen it, read it, or seen it, at least the exec summary. It was very, very well received in the industry and had some key recommendations that were focused and targeted, which meant they can be implemented. So I was asked to go back and look at components of the Kalifa review that we needed to implement, as well as implementing the Regulatory Nursery, and that was part of the our transformation agenda. So I just couldn't miss the opportunity, kind of to design and deliver key initiatives to strengthen the financial services sector, really focusing on firms in their startup phase and in their scale up phase.
But that's brilliant, because those are absolutely at their most exposed times, before they really understand what it's like to be regulated, and through the application process. And then when they're saying, right, okay, so we've done our first 10 million, 100 million transactions. Now we want to scale. We've gone out, we've raised 50 mil. So how on earth do you move from essentially an early stage business to a fast growth one? Those are both absolutely high risk, actually, for both the organization and its shareholders, but also its likelihood of being compliant. So which is easiest? Which is easiest to get off the ground? And what's the reaction been to these ideas from the industry?
Well, I think I'm not sure that there's one easier than the other. I think it depends on the firm, their proposition, their target market, and how they're looking to launch. But from our point of view, we wanted to make sure that firms really thought about, when they got their permissions, what it meant for them to actually embed that in the culture of the organisation and really grow the business from a strong foundation. Where I keep talking, you probably would have heard me talk about the spirit of regulation. How do we ensure that there is those high standards embedded right from the beginning? And often what we see when firms start to grow is this concept of front office running away from back office. And therefore, you start to really grow your client base and market share, but you're not focusing on all of the infrastructure and the support that's needed to keep your business safe and your customers safe. So when things start to go wrong, you don't have that strong foundation. And we really want to be able to work with firms to understand how to ensure that they're using their regulation and they're kind of meeting their obligations in a way that's going to actually support their startup phase as well as their scale-up phase.
And which bit do people find hardest to take on? Because as an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, as typically the business leader, will be very keen on the vision and where it's going and satisfying the various stakeholders, of course, staff and customers, but also the investors. But are those guys and girls, are they kind of supportive of this? Or do they go, oh, well, I suppose if I must? What's their reaction?
We've seen some great responses from the industry. I think the desire to want to really understand how regulation needs to be embedded in the business, and the opportunity for us to engage further with businesses at those two stages, where perhaps before there wasn't the same level of engagement, actually has been very welcome. And we've been open with a lot of sessions with industry and engagement with industry to talk about the initiatives, and we've taken feedback, and it's actually been, so far it's been positive. But now we're in a pilot stage, Tony. So we're running a pilot. It will go on for another 2 or 3 months. We'll take the learnings from the pilot, and we'll see how we move to the next phase.
Cool. Okay, can you tell me what might happen post-pilot? Do you have a sense that these are going to roll out and things?
We're hoping that we can roll it out further, but obviously we wanted to kind of be a bit experimental with, what are the sorts of things, the level of engagement and the type of engagement, the frequency and so on that we thought was necessary. And so the pilot will help us with those sorts of questions. We'll also be able to, identify what are the key areas that firms struggle with in those first stages, and how can we ensure that we're adapting our approach to support them with that. And so it'll tell us a bit about that engagement and how we can make it more efficient, the firm experience. We'll take all of those learnings, and hopefully we can then grow that to the next phase of a larger group of firms. So that's the aim, but I'll probably post up.
I think it's great that the regulator should be innovative in this way. And you don't often think of a regulator needing to be innovative, but you are. So, kudos to you guys for getting that bit done, which is brilliant. So there's a few other things that are going on in the industry. And one of the things that you and I both feel very strongly about is both having an inclusive and a diverse industry, both in terms of the customers that we satisfy and the people who work in our organization. I know you're committed to that. But we kind of, to some extent, haven't done very well yet. In a recent research I read, indicates that fintech industry has a systemic gender diversity problem, and that women make up only 11% of all board members and 19% of all company executives. And I've got to say, whenever we do one of our roundtables, and we're doing them virtually sometimes, I look at the wall of people and I think, how come there's only 2 out of the 10 that are women, or something else, and I just don't know what's going on. I don't know quite what to do about it. I mean, how well do you think we've done in recent years with regards to diversity and inclusion, and what should we do to make it a better level playing field?
We've still got a long way to go. I think we've come a long way, but we have to sort of adjust the baseline, don't we? I mean, we've come a long way from when women weren't able to vote. But we need to adjust the baseline. We do as humans all the time, don't we? To constantly seek improvement. And so if women are 50% of the population, why do we contend with 11 or 19% and pat ourselves on the back? I mean, we can celebrate briefly that we have improved, but we need to really challenge ourselves to keep things moving forward. And that's just on gender. With gender diversity, we feel that we've come a long way. We're really moving forward with the gender balance conversation. But race, neurodiversity, creed, orientation, all of that is way behind gender. So imagine where they are. And so it's a big deal, and we need to continue to really, fight the fight, because what's the alternative?
No, I agree. So what on earth are we going to do? So I went to a school, not last summer, summer before, and I tried to teach young kids about the potential career opportunities in fintech. Well, first of all, they'd never heard of fintech. Secondly, they'd hardly heard of the technology industry. And thirdly, none of the girls, 16 and 17-year-olds, none of the girls showed a whisker of interest. Some of the boys did, but none of the girls. It's almost as if at that level in schools, we haven't communicated that this is a brilliantly exciting, varied, progressive, demanding but rewarding industry. I feel as if we failed in that respect. But what should we really do? Give me a couple of ideas.
Well, I think I agree in terms of, you know, starting at the grassroots and at schools and in the home, and having role models for, you know, for young girls, for, you know, those that are Black or from minority ethnic groups or neurodiverse. Having those role models plays a really, really important part. But how do we find the role models? How do we also continue to create the role models? And for companies today, you know, looking at a number of things. For example, you know, if you're setting your set targets and hold yourself to account, and let's, you know, targets and measurements work, right? Otherwise, we won't set targets in our business. Everybody sets targets and measures themselves in kind of for business performance. We've gone past the making the case for diversity and inclusion. We've made the case.
Yes.
Let's move to targets and measurements.
Very good.
The second thing is, I think if you make it part of the normal discourse of your, you know, organizations' conversations, then you know, it becomes normalized. It's something that gets embedded in your decision making and part of your discussion. And if you constantly kind of do that, then that it becomes front and center of all of your decisions. But crucially for me, make it part of your culture to call it out. Don't walk by. It's really, really important. And it's not the obvious behaviors that are the problem anymore. It's the micro actions, you know, it's the death by 1,000 paper cuts. And so, you know, they need to be called out, not in a threatening way. We call them out with the point of view of education first. And then if the behavior persists and you know, people don't want to move forward, then action must be taken. But this can be something that can be an open, positive dialogue that we have in the organization. So calling it out is important.
I think that's really great. You actually have to be quite brave sometimes. I mean, I'm going to call myself out here. I referred to you guys at the FCA. Now, I kind of qualified that by saying you guys and girls, but actually I shouldn't have said you guys. It's like a gender term. And that's just, and I didn't even think about that. And okay, so I'm old, so you can forget people like me, maybe. But people like I've got to start setting an example, and I have to catch myself out. And so no, I like that. Yeah, call each other out on it. And certainly my kids call me out on anything that's not quite right. I've seen that the Bank of England has a big diversity push. Race in particular, which is quite exciting. And I wonder whether is the FCA doing a similar sort of thing?
We are, yes. There's a lot going on. I think, you know, some of the initiatives, just to give examples, you know, transparency and data to hold us to account. You know, making sure that we collect the right information, obviously in the right way, GDPR, compliance and so on. But collecting the right information, and our consultation actually with the Bank of England that closed in September does talk about how we collect data and what type of data we need to collect. But also things around talent pipeline and progression, you know, training and support. For example, we held inclusion workshops, encouraging people to speak up, really important, and accountability at the most senior levels. You know, the more of these initiatives that we can do, obviously, the better, and the dial needs to move. But there's a lot of movement in the market today. We all know that there's quite a lot of movement in the market. So there's a huge opportunity to rebalance boards and leadership teams on all levels. But let's not miss the opportunity. You know, put in part of your decisions.
I agree with you. I agree. It's very inspiring. Certainly the Payments Association, one of our long-standing project inclusion, supported by MasterCard, actually will call them out on this because or acknowledge them because they've been very supportive over the years, is now changing to being project inclusion and diversity. So we're trying to kind of broaden our thinking and not just talk about creating the right products in the market with a view to including people in financial services, but having a more diverse industry, because if we do that, it's much more likely that the solutions and products that are promoted and sold are diverse and satisfy a diverse range of people as well. So I hopefully that's going to help to move the dial. Look, fantastic, really good to hear about that. Let's talk about, so we're at the beginning of 2022, another year, new year. If you were to ask most regulators what their predictions are for the year ahead, they'll say, oh, I couldn't possibly say. But I'm going to ask you anyway. You know, what would you like to see in terms of for the year ahead, particularly regarding diversity and inclusion? What would you like to hope for?
Well, I'd like to see the dial move. You know, I'd really like to see, I mean, I mentioned the opportunity today in the market for boards to rebalance, you know, that there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of vacancies. There's a lot of people, looking to fill roles. And why not take this opportunity to really create the role models that we spoke about? The more we put this at the heart of our decision making, I think this can happen. And often the obstacles are obstacles that we are creating, I think, for ourselves. So I'd like to see the dial move on that. I'd like to see, I'm hoping that the result of the consultation will move things forward. I think it's shining a light on diversity and inclusion. I'd like to see something around neurodiversity actually. It's actually quite sad. The disability report, the latest disability report showed that 50% of disabled people are in employment. Surely we could do better than that. And actually, to shine a light on autism, 20% of autistic people are in employment. Wow. So even throughout their disability, 50% is not good enough. So imagine again 20%. And so something needs to be done across these these different areas where we can be better as a society, I think. And it's a big deal for someone who traditionally can't find a job easily to actually be in employment and be independent.
Well, brilliant. So let's take this message to the industry this January, this chilly January, that we can actually start to actually move the dial. I think that's very inspiring. Couple of last questions for you. First of all, when you first met us, we were emerging, and we are now the Payments Association. What do you think of this name change, and what does it mean for the role we should play as a community in future?
Well, I mean, I always liked the Emerging Payments Association, but I think the Payments Association is probably more representative of your membership now. A lot of emerging technologies are becoming mature businesses, and seeing growth and scale and disruption and all the good things that that the payments industry has been thriving to deliver, innovation and so on. So I like it, but never lose your emerging payment spirit as long as you cause that.
That's very good advice. That's very good advice. So finally, what advice would you give to a new graduate? So imagine, I ask everybody this question as well. So imagine a new graduate, you meet somebody and they come and say, Maha, look, I'd just love a bit of a few tips for me, and you're a great role model for me. I'd like to follow in your footsteps. And what tips would you give them, a new graduate?
I always find this a hard one, Tony, I have to say, but I'll start with, there's no substitute for hard work. Always seek to learn and take feedback openly. Don't take it personally, but also don't take yourself too seriously, no matter how senior you get, right? Yeah. Take your work very seriously and always set high standards. But it's fine to, goof around and have a laugh. It's we're humans. Let's do that. And whatever job you're doing, find the positive points that motivate you and keep you going, because not every job you do, you're going to love every single aspect of it. So, find the things that motivate you, because every job, no doubt, will help you grow, give you experience and expertise, and will really open your mind. But most importantly, I think, and outside of kind of the work-related kind of behaviours and so on, work doesn't define who you are, and don't let it. And I think that's a really important thing that I take with me every day. Stay humble, be kind to others, stand up for what you think is right. And remember, everyone brings value, everyone. So your success and the success of your team or the people who work around you are not mutually exclusive. And just never forget that. It's really important.
Wonderfully wise words. Thank you so much. To conclude our first Insights interview of 2022, Maha El Dimachki, thank you so much indeed for sharing so many insights and so many wise words. I appreciate it very much.
My pleasure, Tony. Thank you, and Happy New Year to you and to your viewers.